And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven, and earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters. Revelation chapter 14 verses 6 through 7.
Welcome to Faith Forum. Today we have an exciting show for you. We'll be showing you the history behind the first, second, and third angels. Now you may be wondering, what are the three angels' messages? Well, we have some panelists that will show us what the three angels' messages are. Let me introduce the panelists at this time. We have Serena Borno, Christy Garcia, Caitlin Bernal, and Alshania Cummings. They are well versed on the three angels' messages and will give us light on this truth. Christy, can you tell us what the three angels' messages is?
The three angels' message is the last message of mercy to a dying world. God is calling his people to a true worship experience where man would have to make a decision between keeping the commandments of God or the commandments of men. Those that refuse to keep the commandments of men will face persecution as a result of not following the man-made mandate that is instituted.
Thank you, Christy, for that great introduction. Now we have some idea of what we're getting into. Let us begin with our sister Serena. Can you give us some more background on the first angel's message?
Thank you, Justin. It is a pleasure to be here on Faith Forum. Now, to answer your question, the first angel's message points to men preaching the gospel. In Revelation 14, verses 6 through 7 is where we see the first angel's message. It brings us to the judgment hour, in a time where the knowledge of the word of God would increase. We can prove this by looking at Daniel 8 verses 14 and 12 verses 4 through 7.
So you're saying the three angels' messages is men preaching the gospel and not literal angels? That's interesting. Can you give us some more information on this? Who's preaching the message? Caitlin, do you know?
Yes, if we look at Daniel 12 verses 4 through 7, we see that the understanding of the word of God will increase in the time of the end. This time brings us to the end of the papal domination. The papacy was withholding the word of God and they lost power in 1798. During this time, the word of God was being circulated freely and people were studying their Bibles again.
In 1776, a new nation was rising, where civil and religious freedom became the cornerstone of its power. This is none other than the United States of America. It is here where God would raise men to proclaim the first angel's message. While studying Daniel 8 verse 14, William Miller was impressed that Jesus was coming. God used William Miller to proclaim the first angel's message. He was preaching that the hour of judgment would come in the spring of 1844.
William Miller received his license to preach in 1833. It was at this time that the final sign before the second coming of Jesus occurred, according to Matthew 24 verses 29 through 30. On November 13, 1833, the sign in the heaven was seen, and the falling of the stars gave the first angel's message a loud voice.
And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Revelation chapter 14 verse 8.
Okay, so you're saying William Miller was preaching the gospel and giving the first angel's message? So Serena, did he also give the second angel's message?
That is a good question, Justin. William Miller was part of the movement to preach the second angel's message, but he wasn't the only one preaching the first angel's message. Many other preachers joined him, especially after the fall of the Ottoman Empire on August 11, 1840, just 2 years after the prediction of the event, which was given by Josiah Lynch. When the event occurred just as it was predicted, many preachers joined him in the proclamation of the first angel's message. Now I'll have Caitlin give us some more details on the second angel's message.
William Miller first predicted that Jesus was going to come back in the springtime of 1844. However, when this did not happen, a lot of people became discouraged. Samuel Snow was studying the Day of Atonement and realized that the 10th day of the 7th month would fall on October 22nd, 1844. He found this out in the summer of 1844. During this time, the second angel's message was also being preached. Isn't that right, Alshania?
Yes, that's right. And this became known as the midnight cry from Matthew 25 verse 6, which says, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him." At this time, many of the churches rejected the first angel's message, and they became Babylon as a result, a daughter to the Roman Catholic Church, which is Babylon the Great.
William Miller never intended to call the people out of the churches, but the majority of churches would not listen to the message pointing to the hour of judgment. The people were actually kicked out of the churches if they continued to listen to William Miller and his associates.
Obviously, Jesus did not come back on October 22nd, 1844. So what happened to this movement after that, Serena?
You're right, Justin. Jesus did not come on October 22nd, 1844, and there was a great disappointment. Many who were following William Miller turned back to their old occupations and left the movement. However, there was still a small group who believed that the time was correct, but the event was misunderstood.
The Lord used a man by the name of Hiram Edson. As he was going through the cornfields, he had a vision of Jesus moving from the holy place to the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary. They continued to study together, and God continued to work with these people.
And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone, in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God, and the faith of Jesus." Revelation chapter 14 verses 9 through 12.
Was God preparing them to give the third angel's message?
Precisely, God then gave Ellen White a vision in 1847, that the commandments of God should not be done away and that the Lord's Sabbath was on the day commonly known as Saturday. It was the Pope of Rome that changed the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday.
God used a man named Joseph Bates to bring the Sabbath truth to Ellen White and James White, and they began to keep the Sabbath. They learned providentially that the mark of the Roman Catholic Church's authority was Sunday. The law that would be enforced to keep Sunday would then become the mark of the beast.
Wow, this is startling news. Most people think that the Catholic Church was raised by God.
That's true. But if we look back at the history of the Catholic Church, we will find that they have killed more than 50 million Christians who wanted to read and study the Bible. Now, God has raised people in the Seventh-day Adventist Church to proclaim this truth around the world.
Yes, I want to be a part of this movement. Thank you for sharing this with us today.